Hello, I'm Brett Etheridge, founder of Dominate the GMAT. Dominate the GMAT is a leading provider of on-demand video-based test preparation for the GMAT to help students get into business school. What you're about to see is a segment from a full lesson from one of our courses. If you like what you see, check out www.dominatethegmat.com for not only this full lesson, but other course offerings as well. For now, enjoy your free session. Before we drill into those, I want to start by teaching you what I call the bracketing technique. The GMAT loves to camouflage simple points of grammar and make them difficult to spot. And they do it by throwing a lot of excess words, a lot of prepositional phrases, a lot of long complex sentence structures, especially on the more difficult questions. And by the time you get through it, the sentence sounds pretty good to you. And you know what? There may be something as simple as a subject and a verb don't agree, and yet it's difficult to spot because they're separated so far in the sentence. They're camouflaged. There's a lot of stuff masking your ability to pick up on that. Just like this picture, right? Here's some camouflage, and maybe you've started to see there's some words in this camouflage. And in fact, the words read, grammar are fun. Well, obviously, if I just said grammar are fun, something rubs you the wrong way. You know that's wrong. You know it should be grammar is fun. Grammar is singular. And yet when they're embedded in this camouflage, it's hard even to see some of the words. And so how do we do that? How do we decipher? How do we filter through all of this? The bracketing technique. The bracketing technique will come in incredibly helpful for you on a large number of sentence correction questions. Let's take a look at this example. I want you to press pause after we read it together and ask yourself, can you see any points of grammar that are incorrect in this sentence? And then I want to teach you a few things. Here's the sentence. The degree of error in calculations done by ancient Mayan astronomers long before the invention of telescopes were, even by modern standards, incredibly small. So go ahead and press pause. Do you see anything wrong with that sentence? All right, here's the bracketing technique. Basically, the idea is this. You want to read around potentially distracting phrases by mentally enclosing them in parentheses. And I say mentally because the sentence is going to be up on a computer screen. You know, ideally you would have your pencil or your writing utensil and you would actually physically cross off these distracting phrases. You can't do that, so you're going to have to use your scratch paper and you're going to have to mentally do this exercise. And you want to bracket either of the following. These are the two most common things that are going to distract you, that are going to clog up the sentence and make it difficult to pick on some of the points of grammar that you're supposed to be looking for. And the first is prepositional phrases. Remember, prepositional phrases are phrases that provide additional information about something introduced by words like of, in, to, for, by, and with. And if you see prepositional phrases, mentally you should pick up on that, and on your scratch paper, you're going to want to do what I'm about to teach you to do. The second thing you want to pay attention to and mentally enclose in parentheses are any clauses, sets of words, that are set off by commas. And then what we do is after you do that, you want to literally rewrite the pared down sentence minus the prepositional phrases and minus the clauses offset by commas. You want to write that new version of your sentence down on your scratch paper, or at least have it so mentally clear in your mind that you're no longer distracted by those. And then at that point you can take a clear and objective look at that, essentially that new version of that sentence, and decide whether or not there is a very clear error there. If you don't find an error after you've separated out the brackets with the brackets, this bracketing technique, if you don't find an error, okay, that's fine. Now what we can do is we got to examine the words inside the brackets, because that's got to be where the mistake is. Let's revisit our sample sentence. Maybe you picked up on this, maybe you didn't, but let's walk through this technique step by step. Where did we notice either prepositional phrases or clauses offset by commas? Well, we see the word of, the degree something, the degree blah blah blah, the degree of, there's this prepositional phrase. Of error in calculations done by ancient Mayan astronomers long before the invention of telescopes. I mean, that's actually the whole prepositional phrase, so we pick up on that. And then we also see a clause offset by comma, right? Those two commas. In between those commas are the words even by modern standards. And so the bracketing technique tells us to do what? Well, it tells us to literally, as you see on the screen here, bracket them. I have made them red so that they're hard to read and we don't even want to consider them anymore. And so I've not only bracketed out that long prepositional phrase, I've also bracketed out that clause between the commas. And what are we left with? Here's the new version of the sentence. You see, that was a long sentence, and yet we can pare it down to the most basic subject, verb, object form. Really, at the end of the day, that sentence reads, the degree were incredibly small. The degree of what? The degree of blah, blah, blah. I don't care. The GMAT's trying to distract me, right? Were what? Well, even by modern standards. Okay, well, I don't care. Were what? They were just incredibly small. And once we have it pared down, now, maybe you picked up on this, hopefully you did. If you didn't, is it more obvious to you now? Is there a mistake there? Yeah, of course. The word were needs to be changed to was. Why? Because the subject is the degree. The degree is singular, so we need a singular verb. And when we see it in black and white, or white in this case like that, it's obvious. It needs to be the degree was incredibly small. And yet the GMAT tried to distract us. To avoid that or to wade through that, what do? We use this bracketing technique. So it's really, really useful. It's useful on subject-verb agreement. It's useful on pronouns. It's useful on idioms. I mean, it's a very useful technique across the board. So learn it, apply it to your practice problems, and I know it will serve you well. Hello again. Hopefully you found the information in that segment helpful. If you did, just imagine how much you would learn in the full lesson, or better yet, the full course. If you like what you saw, check out www.dominatetheGMAT.com for our full course offerings. So thanks for watching, and go out and dominate the GMAT.